Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Podcast with an Accent. I'm your host, Vadim Gulio, and today I have with me Kristen Coffield, author, educator, and culinary disruptor at Culinary Cure. Welcome, Kristen.
I call myself a culinary disruptor because I want to change the way people think about food and use food as a tool to support their best lives. So my company is the Culinary Cure, and that sums it up. You can use food to cure what ails you if you have the right knowledge to do so.
Kristen, what's your accent? What accent do you speak with?
I love that question. My accent is the accent of resilience. My personal story is I think it's a little bit of everybody's story, but at my very lowest point, I had very few resources to help me. I had been spiraling down in my life for a number of years, and I didn't even realize it. And at my lowest point, I looked around and I realized I couldn't control everything, but I could control what I was putting in my body. I could control what was on the end of my fork. So resilience is when you bounce back from something and it makes you stronger. So at that moment, when I had nowhere else to go, I'd already gone down really far. I turned to the one thing I could control in my life, and that was what I was eating. And one bite at a time, I rebuilt my life, and it's turned out really well for me. So my accent is resilience. Everything that I do, everything I coach people to do is all about start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And that's actually a quote from Arthur Ashe. Because that's what you can do. There's all this other stuff. Right now we're in the middle of the coronavirus. Well, we cannot control that. We have to be resilient. And so I speak with an accent of resilience, and I look at everything with a resilient eye, and I'm always excited because there's always an opportunity, even in some of the worst situations. You know, I think that my story has a little bit of everybody's story in it. I was living what for all intents and purposes was this really textbook perfect life. I went to a good school. I met my husband when we were fairly young. He's a great guy. We're both really hardworking, innovative, gutsy young people. He was in the Army. We got married. He went to law school. We moved to Washington. He had a successful law practice. I had a successful catering company, catering congressional fundraisers. We had 3 beautiful kids who were attending private school. You know, it was just like, this is your suburban life, kind of in a nutshell. I was very involved in the community, and anyway, sometimes life doesn't turn out the way you think it's going to. Everything you think you know can change in a heartbeat. There were problems. There were some underlying financial problems that were challenging my marriage. My mother had breast cancer, which she did not survive. My father had Alzheimer's disease, which he did not survive. Our youngest kid went to college. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And then our dog died. And it was just, all of a sudden, everything in my life, everything I thought I knew, everything I had built my life on changed. The rug was pulled out from underneath me. And at first I spent all my time just trying to kind of cover everything and not really kind of keep it all going, keep all the balls in the air, not let the kids know, not let the friends know. And what that did was it literally, I spiraled down into depression, and my big world became a small world, and it took all of my energy literally to get through each day. My first thought, I would wake up and my first thought would be, how am I going to get through this day? And then at the end of the day, I'd get into bed and I couldn't sleep because the stress was killing me. And this went on, this whole thing took about a decade of my life. And then one day I woke up, and instead of my first thought being, how am I going to get through this day? My first thought was, this cannot be what the universe had planned for me. And that was the point at which I acknowledged I couldn't control all that stuff. I couldn't control the debt. I couldn't control other people's health. I had to do me. And what I could control was on the end of my fork. I had mentioned before, I had had a catering company. Food has always been my medium. It's how I show people I love them. It's how I build community. It's how I took care of my family. And I had let that slip. And so I basically just doubled down on eating. And everything I ate had to do something for me. It had to help me dial down my stress. It had to help me sleep better. It had to nourish me. I also changed a lot of other things. I changed the people I was spending time with. There were certain people that it just amplified my stress. It made my situation seem worse to me. And here's what happens. You change the way you eat, and you make every bite something that supports you, because nothing was supporting me. There was no one and nothing supporting me. So nobody was coming to save me. I had to pretty much put the oxygen mask on myself. And when you change the way you eat, you start to feel different. I had been drinking a lot of coffee in the morning. I'd been drinking a lot of wine at night. I'd probably been eating too many refined carbohydrates and too much grab and go food. And all of a sudden I started to feel better, and I had more energy, and I still wasn't sleeping. So you can lie in your bed at 5 a.m. or you can get up and go to the gym. So I started getting up and going to the gym. Well, you start doing that and you create all these endorphins, these feel-good hormones that change everything. So now I'm eating right, I'm exercising, I'm getting these feel-good endorphins, and my body changes. I start to look different. I start to like the way I look. And then this incredible job comes out of the universe, which I had for 3.5 years. And it was a great job. It was an ideal job for someone who'd worked for themselves for many years. I was working for Dr. Tina Alster. She's one of the top cosmetic dermatologists in Washington. And she asked for some help getting her business kind of reorganized and cleaned up. And one of my signature programs has been the kitchen intervention. So that's how I help people create the conditions of life to support the life they want to live. And she basically said, I need a kitchen intervention on my business. So I jumped into that job and took some of the components from my catering and consulting business and built the Culinary Cure. And that was in 2016. And so here I am. I find myself in a very funny spot. I'm 61, and I find myself in the middle of this conversation about reinventing yourself in midlife.
Would you say you're living a dream?
I am. I'm living my dream. And I think that's an interesting question, because what happens when things don't turn out the way you think they should is you begin to trust the timing of your life. You stop trying to influence the outcome, and you become more a partner in the process. So I just began to trust the universe more. I began to trust my journey, and I had to pivot. It was a big pivot. it was a huge pivot. Many of my friends, their husbands were retiring, and they were in a different circumstance and they could travel and do all these things. And I found myself trying to share the lessons I learned with other people. I don't have any special skill set that allows me to reinvent my life uniquely. But what I was able to do was kind of deconstruct all the things in my life and reconstruct them. I had to reboot. I had to repurpose. I had to rebrand myself. I had to find a bigger tribe. And let me tell you, at 58, to build an online brand, to become an influencer, I'm an immigrant to technology. I am not a native. I had to learn all of these social media skills and find other people that were doing the same thing. And my children were horrified sometimes. They're like, Mom, you can't post that on Instagram. Too much sharing. You find your voice, you find your tribe, you find out you're not alone. And so that's been really exciting. So yeah, I am living my dream. I'm making up for a lost decade. I'm connecting with other people in this space. I'm creating courses. I'm writing books. I'm blogging. And I'm helping other people navigate this crazy shit, excuse my French, that can happen to you in your life. Life is a tough sport. And nobody wrote the playbook on how you reboot after, a personal tsunami.
One thing is clear: when A, what can stop you from doing what you love, and B, if what you're doing is helping people, you are obligated to go out and help by all means possible.
And that's what really excites me. My life didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to turn out, but it's turned out the way it was supposed to turn out.
Kristen, does your life at the moment, does it look like what you envisioned it to be in the early 20s?
Oh, in my 20s, I thought that, I'll tell you what's different in my life that really changed. I imagined at this point in my life, at 61, I'd be living in a big house, that my kids would be nearby, that I might have grandchildren, and my husband would be getting ready to retire. That's kind of what I imagined my life might look like now. And right now, I have 2 kids in LA, 1 kid in Boston. We're getting to downsize into 1,400 square feet in the next couple of weeks. I have never had a greater sense of passion and purpose for what I do. My husband's an attorney. You can work until you're dead if you're an attorney. So the 2 of us are, at 61, we're looking at like the next 20 years and all the stuff we want to do in that 20 years. And it's very different from the stuff when I was in my 20s that I thought I'd be doing. It's more about creating, and it's more business focused, and it's more bringing ideas to life whose time is now. My husband and I are working on on legal wellness education. It's actually wellness courses that we're designing for attorneys. So we're doing that together. I'll let you know how that goes.
I did see it on your website. I was kind of curious about it.
Yeah. So we've been creating continuing legal education courses, and online learning is really the future for so much education, and nothing is showing that more than right now when people are at home with this self-quarantine situation, we're looking for resources online. We're looking for things that enrich our lives that we can tap into immediately without leaving our homes. So I think it's an idea whose time is now, but we're still moving it forward.
We'll do a follow-up check-out.
We're going to need that. Yeah. Working with your husband is interesting. We're both firstborn children, and there's a lot of type A. I'm a big alpha dog in my family. And so it's interesting. We're learning a lot of how to dance around each other in this new world.
What advice would you give your younger self?
This is one of those questions that I ponder all the time, because, when you get to be in your 60s, you do look back a lot and kind of look at your trajectory and think about opportunities that came and went. And if I could go back, which would be so cool to go back with what I know now, I would tell my younger self, don't wait on those good ideas. Act on those good ideas now. Run them to the ground. So if I could go back, I would tell myself, have more confidence. You got this. You're an idea person. Run it down. Find the right people to collaborate with, because collaboration is really the key to getting big stuff done.
Kristen, what's the best story from your life that has a valuable message?
I will never forget this day. I was picking up our youngest daughter at lower school, and I was sitting in my car listening to NPR, and they were doing a feature on this new thing called YouTube. And it was this platform where people could video themselves and create content. It was an educational platform. It was a self-promotion platform. It was an entertainment platform. And I remember sitting in my car and listening to that and thinking, oh, that's perfect for me. I should do that. I should start a wellness program on YouTube. But when YouTube first started, we all didn't have phones that were cameras and microphones. We didn't have Amazon where you could go online and order equipment inexpensively to be delivered to your home for lighting and sound. So I kind of thought about it hard, and I'm like, well, what would I need? I'd need a video camera, but I don't really know how to use a video camera. It seemed overwhelming. And I had 3 kids at home, and I never ran that down. And if I had done that, it would have been a very different story. I knew in that instant that that was going to be something incredible. And I should have jumped on it. I should have made it happen. And I didn't. And here I am.
Here you are.
Creating video content every single day from my kitchen, in my private Facebook group, the Culinary Cure, Kristen Coffield. On my Instagram, I'm posting video in my stories every day. So we've come full circle I do TV segments for Good Morning Washington and Fox 5. And right now they keep asking me, they want a video just like we're doing on Zoom. So I'm setting up my home studio and doing that. So from that point to this point, that's how much has changed, that anybody can now create content in a way that only a few people who had the wherewithal and saw the opportunity jumped in on those very early days.
Kristen, what's your favorite book that you've read and why?
Well, I'm a big reader. I love to read. I love to read for pleasure. I love historic fiction, but I also love Malcolm Gladwell. I think he's got such an interesting perspective on things. He pulls us. He's so provocative. The way he observes the world is informative and educational, but also incredibly entertaining. And one book that I have read over and over is Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. And it's the story of success. It's why some people are more successful than others. And timing has so much to do with that. But for anybody who hasn't read that book, it's incredible. And some of the stories in it, you just kind of go, now I understand. Now I see. So timing is everything. And that goes back to talking to your younger self. Don't wait. If you've got a good idea, run it down. That goes back to my story about Instagram. Timing, not Instagram, about YouTube. Timing is everything. And so I've learned all those lessons now at 61. And, okay, I'm not doing a whole lot on my TikTok account, but I've got one. But that's a great book. And any of Malcolm Gladwell's books are just a wonderful, wonderful read.
And what's your favorite quote?
I love strong women. And Eleanor Roosevelt is a woman worth studying. Her life was extraordinary. Her intelligence was incredible. The circumstances under which she lived, she was just grace under fire. But she has this great quote, and it is, "A woman is like a tea bag. You can't tell how strong she is until you put her in hot water." And I think that's a good quote for me, because it's about resilience. It's about what we do when we think we've run out of options. It's about how we pivot and make the best of any situation. And so that's one of my all-time favorite quotes.
Kristen, what is the most important photograph in your life?
I have a picture of, it's a summer. It was one summer, and we were all together. My mom, my stepdad, my sister and her family, my husband, myself, our kids, our dog, and we got somebody to snap this family photo of us. Oh, my grandmother was in the picture, and everybody kind of complained. I remember people were like, "Oh, Kristen, you're so bossy, making us take this picture." And I'm like, we're going to want to have this picture. And we got the picture. And now when I look at the picture, it's so poignant, because at that point in my life, I hadn't gone through all of this, all these trials, and I didn't know what I didn't know. And what I didn't know was that everything in your life can and probably will change. People you love will leave. Children grow up. Life can get really hard. But in that moment, we were all together. We were all happy. And we didn't know, what was coming. And so, I love the photo because it fills me with great joy that I had that moment. But it's so poignant to look at it and realize just how much I took for granted,
Wow. Thank you for sharing, Kristen.
Oh, you're welcome.
Kristen, what turns you on?
I love to disrupt the way people think about food. Food at its most essential is calories, and calories equal fuel, right? So food is really fuel. That's why we're supposed to eat it. It's the fuel that we feed our bodies. And when I can help people get back to that mindset about using food as this productivity tool, gosh, if I told you you could have better sleep, look great, feel great, become, develop wellness resilience, live younger, longer, and better, dial down your stress just by changing how you eat, wouldn't you be like, hell yeah, sign me up? This is not, it's not expensive to eat real food. But what's happened is people have become willfully ignorant. We've been marketed to. We have entire industries built around processing food and marketing it to us. There's not a lot of money to be made telling people, eat real whole food, eat more oranges, eat more broccoli, eat more whole grains. There's more money to be made by processing all those things. Drink this orange juice. We have 10 kinds of orange juice for you. We have low-calorie orange juice and no-calorie orange juice and light orange juice and, frozen concentrated orange juice. That's where the money's made. The money's not made telling people to eat whole foods. So when I can get people to pivot, to create the conditions of life, to basically create the lives they want to live and understand how to use food as a tool in that journey, that turns me on. And when I can collaborate with other people to get that message out there and to make the message interesting for people, that's what I do on my Instagram at Kristen Coffield. I feed people bite-sized messages that they can use every single day to change their lives. Just one little tip. If you did everything I post 365 days a year, you could transform your health. So that's what really turns me on. Getting people to shift the way they think about food and understand the value and importance of using food as this tool for resilient wellness and culinary resilience, creating the resilience by using food in a different way. It's really interesting because so many of my friends will say things to me like, remember when you told us we should be taking probiotics when our kids were little? And that's like 25 years ago. We should all be eating the way our great-grandparents were eating. Guess what? This food doesn't need a label. It's just an orange, right? It doesn't need a label. So if we start eating the way our great-grandparents ate, if we eat food in season, if we shop locally, when we shop locally at our local farmers market and support our local farmers, the food doesn't have to travel and be stored. So we're actually getting more nutrients from our food. And remember, food is fuel. Food is calories. What you're paying for when you buy food, you're paying for nutrients. And once people start to think about food in those terms, that's what you're buying. You're buying nutrients. But food's been changed and modified, so it's addictively delicious. You can't just eat one, you're going to eat that whole bag. And we've lost our ability to make these good decisions because we're being told, oh, you need to eat this product to be healthy, or this is made from oats, so it's good for you. Just eat the oats, you don't need to eat the product made from the oats. So getting to this place where people understand how simple it is, and it's delicious. Believe me, I love to cook. I love to eat. My family goes on vacation. We sit around drinking coffee and we talk about what we're going to eat for lunch. And at lunch, we talk about what we're going to eat for dinner. We live for food. I have about 180 recipes at theculinarycure.com. I teach people the power of food as a tool. in a delicious way. And here's the other thing that people don't know. Our kitchen isn't set up to support us. And it's nobody's fault. Nobody ever showed you how to stock your kitchen. Or, you probably bought a set of cookware. Guess what? You only need 2 of those pans. So people have too much stuff in their kitchens. They don't have the right stuff. They're shopping for food, not buying meals. They're buying calories, not nutrients. And they don't have a system that in their kitchen that's set up to help them shop, cook, and eat in a healthy way. So my signature program is the kitchen intervention. And it's where I go in and I teach people less is more. You should only buy things that you have a plan for. And actually during this self-quarantine, I am stocked up with things that are really easy to turn into meals. Beans, nuts, sweet potatoes, kale, foods that keep for a long time, oranges, apples, lemons, all these things, seeds, chia seeds, frozen chicken, all these things that literally are simple to assemble and turn into meals that can not only feed us in a delicious way, but nourish us in this bigger way. I invite everybody to come visit me at theculinarycure.com. There are so many free resources there for people, and I'll send you the link, but I have a free Healthy Habits 101. It's a guide that your listeners can download and use this is the perfect time when we're all at home. They can use this guide to reboot their lives. It covers all the major areas, all the things we discussed. It's even got some recipes. So that's Healthy Habits 101. And I'll put the link below, but visit me at theculinarycure.com. I invite you to follow me on Instagram to get those daily tips. And that's at Kristen Coffield. And I have really doubled down on giving people tips they can use right now that will change their lives immediately. And also, if anybody wants to join my Facebook group, the Culinary Cure Kristen Coffield, I'm doing cooking classes on there. I'm doing classes on how to use essential oils. I've got all kinds of resources on there to help people figure out how to stay productive and expand their minds and make whatever the world's, make a lot of lemonade. It's time to make lemonade, people. Here we are. Let's do it well.
Thank you for being on the show, Kristen. It's been a very, very nutritious conversation.
The pleasure was all mine, and thank you for inviting me. And maybe we'll have to do a follow-up.
We shall.
After we're all allowed out again.
And everybody in the audience, thank you for being with us, listening or watching to this show. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.